Hi there, thank you for joining my little video overview of my bikepacking trip down the Colorado Trail. The Colorado Trail is a 486-mile hiking trail linking Denver to Durango through some of the wildest mountain areas in Colorado. Fortunately, you can also bikepack the trail while doing a couple of detours around wilderness areas where by law, mountain bikes are not allowed. It still gives you an amazing overview of the trail, and here I am, fresh and ready to start off with the trail. Yay! And we're off. Bike's ready, everything's going. So it's the start of the Colorado Trail. There are some very rideable, popular trails close to Denver, but very quickly you also get a first taste of hiker bike, which you will get a lot more of in later on the trail. But super sweet single tracks here, some of the best riding areas I've been in, nice and lowy, and absolutely, the first chance of getting great mountain scenery and enjoying as much as you can. Wasn't long on that day before the rain came in though, and I first tried to wait out some of the rain, sort of covered in polycro and staying out of the water. But pretty soon I was back on the trail and, making the best out of it until I get to my first little amazing campsite. The next day was a massive 70 plus mile detour around a wilderness area. Started off okay, but then I got absolutely drenched by the rain.
Ah, day three. Definitely feeling a bit better this morning. Yesterday was rough. I mean, somewhere around 80 miles and almost 10,000 feet of uphill. And of course, it rained most of the way, so I got drenched to the bone again. And, kind of had to set up camp and stuff when it was a little lull in the rain, but still everything was rather wet. And this morning, everything is chilly and freezing and absolutely wet through. So, got to decide whether to try and ride in the wet stuff to dry it a bit or to put on some dry stuff, and then I don't have any more dry stuff left. All the nice little decisions you have to take. But first, it's coffee and a good wake up. And then today is over the first two higher mountain passes. So it's not a crazy day like yesterday. It was a big detour around the wilderness area, but hopefully it'll be fun. We'll see. At least the legs feel good and the bum is not too sore. So we'll see how it goes. Oh, and one more memory of this camp was the attack of the mice. I've never seen so many old field mice in my life. First rummaging around the stuff at my bike, and then eventually even like running on the inside of the tent, like on the inner half, under the rain fly, bounced a few off in the middle of the night. But yeah, they woke me up a couple of times. And I found my new favorite. I just, for the first time, made sort of a chocolate keto mix with a little bit of the last of the coffee. And man, this is really the stuff. I mean, can't think of anything better this time of the day. So it should fuel me up for the ride.
Once you rejoin the trail after the detour, there's some beautiful scenery and beautiful strands of aspen with really good trails to ride on as well. So it's a lot of fun. Definitely an area I would look to returning to one day in fall to see the fall colors. Also, a couple of cows on the trail in Colorado. That's where your grass-fed beef comes from. When people take them up onto high pastures. Once you cross the road at Kenosha Pass, there's another section of really gorgeous riding. Both of these you can actually access from the pass in the future as well. And slowly you start making your way up Georgia Pass. And that will actually put you up onto the Continental Divide for the first time in the trip.
Ooh, made it to the top of the Continental Divide. A little bit of hail, but nothing too bad. The rain's holding off today. It was sunny most of the day. Top of the mountains, a little bit cloudy. But yeah, such a beautiful area now that I can see all the way onto the other side of the divide. So, glad we made it so far. At least it's downhill from here for today. End of day three with beautiful campsite by the river. Sorry, got this on because the only thing with rivers and campsites is a lot of mozzies as well. So made it over Kenosha Pass, over Georgia Pass, and yep, that was quite a hell of a descent from there. Rocky and fun and interesting. But yeah, slightly shorter day today since tomorrow is going to be a big day over to Copper, which is actually the biggest portion of hike a bike, as we call it, or unrideable terrain. And you go up to over 12,000 feet, 10-mile range. Anyway, looking forward to that. Hopefully, the legs will be good tomorrow and we'll have a lovely day out there.
The next day included some of the best downhill riding of the trip and a good taste of some of the single track to come. This area above Breck is maintained by the local biking community, so super smooth trails, nice and flowy, and definitely, the terrain is not the most scenic, but the trails are some of the best that you would find anywhere on the Colorado Trail. While a lot of the rest are basically hiking trail that you may have to hike a bike up sections, here it's all rideable, smooth, flowy, single track. Puts a smile on your face that's really, really difficult to wipe that grin off. One of the best areas ever.
Wow, never give up. After that rainstorm drenched me again, and I thought I wouldn't get over 10-mile pass and into Copper and may have to camp on this side of the pass. Thankfully, it was just rain and not too much thunder and lightning, and suddenly I see a patch of blue sky and it's opening up. So, it's always good to hang in there. There's some blue sky. Holy shit. Got caught in a thunderstorm up over 12,000 feet. Oops, there's the lightning. Uh, and it's hailing like crazy around here. Uh, tells you, yeah, the weather changes. It rained and then it was sunny, and I was sitting up there filming Picas and really enjoying the day. And as soon as I hit this side, I thought it was going to be a straight drop down, but there's a long section that seemed to follow the ridge line. And yeah, so I'll show you that in a second. This is going to be a lesson learned, just trust the weather. Thankfully, I found a little cave to shelter in, and we'll ride this out and see how long this is going to take, and hopefully not get struck by lightning. If I do, I love you, Brooke. Bye. Woohoo! Happy to be alive. Nothing like the first rays of sunshine and my new hot chocolate mix to get you back to life. It's a beautiful bluebird day. Let's see if it stays that way.
Really nice ride this morning up the valley to Soul Pass. As you get higher and higher, you get through these fields of wildflowers and the views are just absolutely stunning. After cresting the pass, I spent a bit of time drying out stuff from the night before. Then you quickly hit Kokomo Pass, and the highlight here is the downhill section through some of the best wildflowers I saw on this whole trail, and of course some of the funnest trails to ride as you go downhill. After the downhill, there's a sort of a flat section, and you get up to Tennessee Pass, and then eventually you hit the detour around a wilderness area that puts you down in the little town of Leadville. This is a good resupply point where you can stock up for the next couple of days and also enjoy some of the best mountain pizza that you can have out there. And it's lovely to have a bit of regular food after all the camp food.
Massive trailhead, and my first sort of dry start to the morning apart from the regular expected dew. So getting Was going to get up a little bit earlier, and I had food ready so I could start the day earlier since I have to resupply today. But decided to actually for once dry out stuff a little bit. So it's a bit of a yard sale at the moment here as everything is packed out in the sun. But it dries pretty quickly and hopefully I'll be on my way soon. Just to show it's not all fun and games and sweet downhills. Sometimes you have to slog uphill.
A lot hotter and drier down here in the valley, but with some smooth single track as you go down through the chaparral style terrain, especially down here heading towards Twin Lakes. And a lot of ups and downs, quite a tough day. Also some beautiful riding through aspen forests, of course.
Not just flying down the hills, it's a lot of crawling up them too.
Eventually you detour another wilderness area, the highlight of which is riding through these old rail tunnels on a secondary road following the Arkansas River, where many people are rafting this time of the year as well. Restocking in Buena Vista, and then this is the only bear that I saw on the trail, and thankfully it's not a dangerous one.
Feel like a new person. Had a nice cold bath in the river. Would have made Wim Hof proud. But it's important to keep clean and, take a bath when you can. It's a nice evening, it's not raining. It's about 60 odd degrees and just pleasant by the river. It's kind of nice to have a nice calm, into the day. And yeah, I mean, day 6 done, and you still get a little bit bruised on the behind. And two things that I highly recommend is something called butt paste. Don't tell me where it comes from. I mean, people with babies may know it, and there's a baby on it, so I assume it's used for that. But that in the evening after you're washed, and just to kind of soothe the old tired sit bones. And then there's everyone knows chamois butter, which works really, really well. Putting it on in the morning. But yeah, you gotta take care of the behind since it's gotta go a long way. But for now, stocked up on food in Buena Vista, so going to make some or have some whole wheat flour tortillas with ham and cheese. Something different. Looking forward to tomorrow. It's going to be a big day all the way to Monarch. Beautiful morning. Finally woke up dry. A little bit of condensation on the inside of the rainfly, but that's to be expected. But even no dew on the ground, my laundry is getting nice and dry. We'll get dry further today on the bike. And yeah, just ready for a big day over to Monarch. Well, before I can make coffee, I have to go and retrieve my food bag. This is how you try to keep bears away from your food. You hang it up in a tree on a branch. It's kind of hard to see with the light behind it. But yeah, every evening I tie a rope or a rock to the end of a rope, throw it over the branch like that, and then hoist up the food bag and tie it securely, and hopefully bears can't get to it. Voila! Food from heaven, or actually just from a tall tree. Some people like to just camp cold and not have any warm food. I do like the little bit of coffee in the morning though, and it is nice on a longer trek if you need to use a freeze-dried meal to obviously be able to boil water. And instead of a jet boil, which is actually a fairly heavy and bulky and doesn't really fit anywhere on the bike frame, I just use this little, I think it's a 600 ml titanium cup,
and the little propane or butane or whatever it is fuel source fits in it, and then you've got a very small little um, collapsible burner, and that's sort of a very minimalist setup that's lightweight and easy. It's not the most fuel efficient, like the jet boiler is better insulated. I bring a bit of foil in case it's windy to try and sort of protect it from the wind, because that helps with the insulation. But otherwise, this little setup works very well. And this is day 7 on that little canister, and used it most days, and at least 4 or 5 of the evenings as well. After a hard but unspectacular day, I picked up supplies in Monarch and had this lovely campsite at the bottom of Fusus Pass. And then the next morning, we're able to make my way up Fusus, where the wildflowers were sometimes literally chest deep as you go up.
This is so steep. Hard to find traction on. But man, look at that view. Coming a long way up the pass.
After making my way up Fusus Pass, which was really steep in the top section, I actually joined a part of the Monarch Crest Trail, and there was a lot of day riders on here since it was a Saturday, and it's a popular trail where people get shuttled up to the top of the pass and then make their way down into the valley. It took me a while to remember that I've actually done this 2 years ago with one of my best friends, Simon. And it was kind of fun here to follow someone riding down. So, get someone else in the picture and see if you can take the fully laden, Colorado Trail bike and keep up with people on their Saturday morning ride. The fully laden bike, actually, it's pretty slow uphill because you're carting all that weight. But going downhill, it's a bit like a runaway truck. You can actually keep up with people if you're just willing to hang in there. So this was definitely a really, really fun part of the trail. Good to see a few other people around as well, and to ride a piece of trail that you've ridden in the past and have very fond memories of.
Ah, good old Snickers bar. Find them anywhere in the world. I've even found them, high up in the Himalayas. Little gas station, everything, they always have a Snicker bar. I kind of prefer Cliff Bars. I'm more partial to them, and Justin's almond butter packs way more calories, about twice as much as the Snickers or the Cliff Bar, or a goo packet or something like that. But it's kind of hard to get them out of the packets. I'll show you that later. For the moment, I'm going to enjoy my Snickers until I can get up this hill. Whew, pretty brutal day today. Not so much in distance, maybe 45 miles, but going up Fusus Pass, really loose and rocky. And then the whole area around Sergeant's Mesa is just famous for its, they're called baby heads, like basically what it says, like rocks the size of the head of a baby, and they're all loose, and you can't barely ride up or down on them. So for many people, this is the toughest part of the trail, or the least like. And it's pretty wild out here, though, in the middle of nowhere. I just tonight took a, like, didn't go look for a campsite that's been used before, but just, took a turn off the trail and into the bush or the forest. So it's kind of wild and out there. I mean, something happens to you here, they won't find you for years probably. But that's besides the point. That was quite a night at my little wild campsite. Around 2:30 in the morning, I heard, not footsteps, but animal noises around the tent. First thought it was a bear because of the sort of heaviness of the thing and the way it made like little pieces of wood crack, which a little animal typically don't. But I didn't hear any sniffing sounds. Bears are a bit like dogs; they tend to sniff, and you can normally realize it's a bear from that. So not sure, it was probably a raccoon or something like that, something smaller. I think all small animals sound like a bear when you're kind of zipped up into in a tent, but it may well have been. I kind of got back to sleep a little bit, and then heard some noises again, and eventually kind of turned on the light, zipped up the tent, made some noise. And didn't see anything really close by fleeing, but there was definitely some sounds just a little bit before. So it's all the fun and joy of camping in the woods. I mean, that's why we're out here. So fortunately, food hung up high in a tree. Never been touched by a bear so far, because if I lose my food here, I'll be in a bit of a pickle getting through to the other side. Because no shops, no nothing in the wilderness. Yeah, I thought I'll take a little food shot for the day before I go through all my rations, and I can't show you that. So, starting in the morning, it's coffee, little Starbucks instant coffee, and I mix in some chocolate, keto, hot chocolate mix kind of thing that's really delicious with the coffee. And then next to it, there, we've got some granola. And moving on to lunch, I've got some nuts, mixed salted nuts, macadamia nuts. They actually pack the most energy per ounce. And next time I'll probably just bring macadamia nuts. I also love these bananas, high fat content, so relatively lightweight for the energy that they carry. My old standby for hiking trips or getting into the backcountry, peanut butter pretzels. Nothing like a good peanut butter pretzel lunch. Um, During the day, I've got some Justins. They're a bitch to get out of the packet, but they're okay. Um, some honey and goo for those little humps where you just need that little extra kick. Cliff bars that I always agree with pretty well. And I'll use a bit of that scratch um, electrolyte mix. Actually, mix it in with a different electrolyte mix, so there's extra electrolytes. And dinners, I'm going light on this part of the trip because of the water weight and stuff I have to carry. I have one of those sticks of salami and a little packet of crackers. And sometimes, I have some leftover nuts or something like that. So that's it for today. And hopefully, it'll get me all the way. Another trail tip is to carry a little bit of deodorant. I mean, it weighs less than an ounce, and it goes a long way towards keeping your sanity. And for the occasional person that you run into, they don't really have to stay upwind from you. You see a lot of things about people saying wool. Wool is definitely the way to go, the best fabric. People say you can go for weeks without it smelling. I kind of disagree with that. This guy definitely needs a wash since it's been a few days. Got some sweat stains on it and the likes, but wool is definitely the way to go. Also, it's nice and light and works pretty easy. Wow, it was hot this morning, and over lunchtime, I'm sweating through and just like sweat building up everywhere. It's a bit of a haul, but slowly getting there. Oh, it had to happen somewhere. One of those rocks shifted weirdly, stump caught the handlebar, and my head went into the tree. Ah, I'll have to attend to it when I get to water again. Doesn't look too bad. You're doing many miles, I guess somewhere you're going to hit the deck. And so far, so good. I mean, it's a couple 100 miles in. So we'll hope for the best. I feel like a new person. On the detour, I found this reservoir, and it's kind of by a public road, but I didn't see a car for a while, so I just skinny dipped in the lake and rinsed out my t-shirt and my cycling shorts for tomorrow. Uh, cleaned my legs a little bit. They've been cleaned in 2 or 3 days. So yeah, after the dry camps of the last night or two, or iffy water, so nice to just get refreshed and cool, because it's still fairly hot out here, and I still got about 45 miles to go, and it's already mid-afternoon. So with looking forward to it.
Yeah. So on the Colorado Trail, bikes have to detour the wilderness areas because nothing mechanical is allowed in there. So that allows for a lot of riding on these gravel roads, remote parts of the country. You haven't seen a car in an hour. Uh, Headwind is kind of getting a little bit better for this section at least. But yeah, 51 odd miles, just stuffing it out until I can get back on the trail and enjoy the real Colorado Trail.
So, in the middle of the night, I woke up with a severe pain in my left wrist and realized that I must have injured that more significantly than I realized when I took the tumble yesterday. And my index finger is about 1.5 times its normal size, so that's a little bit stiff. And the wrist itself is, you know, quite painful. I can't push myself up on that and hope it's going to be all right for handling the bike. It's already making packing up the tent and the sleeping pad and stuff quite interesting because I can't stuff things easily or, use the power of that hand. But, we'll see how it goes and try and get up on the mountain before the afternoon thunder and rain comes in.
After actually rejoining a paved road and hoofing out the last part of the detour, you end up on the two sections of the Colorado Trail that goes the highest and where you're way above tree line for most of the day, all of the day actually. And there's no protection from thunderstorms, lightning storms. So this is the day where you hope for clear weather, that you kind of start holding your thumbs a week before that you can get a weather window to kind of crank this out. And I was very fortunate. It rained on, to the south and even a bit to the west and east. But I was able to, enjoy this day, which included some super sweet downhill sections here towards the end of that first section. Of course, that's after you've reached the high point of the trail. So it was nice to be able to start putting this day behind you and enjoy some of this epic single track. It was beautiful making my way up this valley, and I was very tempted to look and find a campsite in this area as it was almost the end of the day. But with the weather so beautiful, I decided to push on and try to get over the pass and see what the other side would hold. Hopefully, just as beautiful a valley.
Yeah, after such a glorious sunny day, now waiting out the rain at the top of another pass. Looks like it's going to pull to the side, we hope. And yep, never a day without changing weather in the mountains.
Fortunately, the storm blew over, mostly missed me, and it was just the most gorgeous afternoon light on the other side of the valley as I go into one of the most picturesque areas on, this portion of the trail. Wow, this is just so stunningly beautiful. I mean, this landscape, this terrain, the wildness being out here. The rainstorm that I waited out is kind of like moving behind me, and I just don't have words for how incredibly beautiful this area is. I was so filled with beauty and awe after this epic day that I quickly decided that I have to camp by one of these lakes. There was already someone at the upper lake, so I went to the lake a little bit further down. And yeah, just a beautiful wild setting out there in the middle of nowhere. Kind of like the style of camping that I love and that I always prefer.
Wow. Yeah, I just had a super great day today. Was lucky, just like when you climb big mountains and you wait for that one day where, the weather works in your favor. This was that one day. We went high, the highest point on the trail, 13,270 feet above sea level. And the weather cooperated. It rained to the south quite heavily, even a little bit behind and ahead. Spend a bit of time on a pass, hunkering down on the little edge of the rain, not too much. And then just came down this beautiful valley with absolutely gorgeous sunlight and open and two little lakes. And, these are the reasons that you come out and do this kind of stuff. Like this is just, you know, nature's crucible. I mean, it is so beautiful. And I wish everyone can experience that. Wow, what an incredible sunset. It's just been changing colors over and over, and just something special. Wow, that's buried in the bog.
Section 23 of the Colorado Trail between Carson Saddle and Stony Pass was definitely one of my favorites of the trail. You stay up above 12,000 feet and you've got this beautiful flowy single track that always leads to new vistas around every corner. Definitely one of the most interesting high altitude days of riding I've ever had.
Holy cow. Today's definitely one of the most epic days I've ever spent on a mountain bike in these high mountains. Perfect bluebird day. I mean, it's 10:30 and only the first wisps of clouds are coming up, much later than even yesterday. So it doesn't get much better than this. The trail's super sweet, except for the little hiker bikes over the passes. But every time you go over a saddle or a pass, a new mountain vista open up, and I mean, there's just nothing like this. This is so amazing and awesome and out there. I mean, there's very few other people out here, the odd hiker I come across, but it is just totally epic. Makes the whole trip, it's definitely a highlight of the whole trip. Makes it all worthwhile.
Talk about a day of mountain highs where one highlight fades into another, and this would be one of those perfect days up at high altitude, turning your bike up and down valleys and hills and just drinking in all this amazing scenery that keeps on unfolding around you.
Wow, one of the most amazing places ever. All the way around me, mountains, wilderness, wildness, everything, and not a single human man-made structure, sound. Not you can hear the planes, but otherwise there's nothing out here. It is just absolute beautiful wilderness as far as the eye can see. Many mountains. You kind of want to hike in here and spend a week or two exploring just this area because there is so much. Wow. One day I'll be back.
Historic Stony Pass is the start of the last wilderness detour that puts you into the little mining town of Silverton, Just enough time for a quick beer, pizza, recharge of the iPhone, and then it's back up to the mountains for the last section to Durango. I was struck by how green this area is. They get a lot more rain here than we get in the Denver Boulder area. And this area is also quite popular with mountain biking, so the trails are very well maintained. Some of the most rideable terrain, or the largest sort of percentage of rideable terrain. There's still a bit of hiker bike, wouldn't be the Colorado Trail otherwise. But some lovely, lovely downhills, some beautiful fields of flowers, and then these mountain landscapes that keep unfolding. I mean, the San Juan Mountains are just so vast, you don't run out of mountain scenery. And kind of like the day before, every time you go over a pass or crest a high saddle, a new vista opens up in front of you, a new valley with its own attractions, its own look, its own mountains. And meanwhile, the epic downhill single track keeps on giving.
Gotta love Justin's nut butters for the trip. This one is chocolate, hazelnut, and almond butter, and it's super delicious, but the packaging is not really working well. It says knead and squeeze, so you're gonna knead it up, you squeeze it out. Very calorie dense, so it's great to take on a hiking trail, but it just doesn't come out of the packet, as well as you should. So you need a knife, and you need to cut the whole package open, and there's still half your delicious almond, hazelnut butter, chocolate left, and you end up having to get it out little bit by little bit. Maybe they can work on their packaging a little bit. Maybe something like a toothpaste roll or something that you can actually squeeze out. Because this gets a little cumbersome every time looking for the knife and trying to squeeze out the last bit of nuts. I mean, you carried all this energy over the hill, you may as well use it. Delicious though, absolutely delicious.
This area also has a bit of exposure on some of these high ridges that makes for some pretty interesting riding. Wouldn't want to be up here in terrible weather, but it was a bluebird day and the winds were not too strong, so it wasn't too difficult to navigate.
Yeah, the final night out there is always a little bittersweet that all good things must come to an end. I don't know how true that saying is, but it's this one's definitely winding up. Tomorrow I see Brooke. She's gonna come and pick me up in Durango. We'll have a night there, and yeah, picked a nice campsite with a gorgeous view, kind of all over the whole valley, and yeah, view over the valley and the mountains I just came over in the last couple of days. It's been an amazing trip, um, long and hard, but over 500 miles on a bike on in the mountains over 10,000 feet. It's kind of a real interesting concept, and I'm glad it worked out fine so far. Touch wood on tomorrow. We all need to spend more time in the mountains. The last morning, and I will say I'm kind of stretching it out a little bit, taking a leisurely start. Actually waited until the sun hit the tent, and yeah, it's that sort of melancholy of a big adventure coming to an end, or being on its last legs, enjoying the moment, enjoying reflecting a little bit, and looking forward to coasting into Durango today. Um, Last night, a deer took my shorts and carried them off a little bit. I think it was after the salt that's kind of like baked into them after 2 days since the last wash. But thankfully, no damage, and we're ready to carry on. Good morning again. Where's the brush?
So made it to the end and reunited with Brooke in Durango. Thank you so much for watching and for everyone who supported Uthando as well in the fundraiser component of this. I've added some more video on the bike and the setup for anyone interested. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time.
Just a quick look at the bike setup and where I carried what. So I got most of my stuff from Relevate Designs. As you could see, there's like 4 or 5 pieces that are matching. I found them to work really well. There's lots of others on the market as well. But in general, starting off with the seat back in the back, this is the Terrapin 14 liter clothing, sleeping bag, and on the start of a longer section, some of the heavier food that I try to put to the front of the bag. Also, sandals, lovely for when you get to camp. Do put a carabiner on them, otherwise, you will lose them on the trail. I saw quite a few that were lost along the way. This little guy, I put all my tools in and, a loop for the chain and everything like that. So that's a little tool bag. I don't dig in there every day. This little Mac tank is quite handy because you can put your power bars and things in there. So it's really, you know, right there when you need it. The full suspension bikes have, less space in the frame area. This is custom for this bike. And Relevate makes a couple of different ones. I put way at the bottom the rope that I would hang my food bag with. I put my little stove set up in there. And then whatever is heaviest, like nuts or
anything, the spare power bank battery, that clunker I dragged along all the time. And then coming to the front, you've got the handlebar bag that takes the tent and the sleeping pad rolled into each other. Mine is, from my hiking days, so it's like a 17-year-old tent. You get smaller ones now, which I'll probably invest in the future. And then this loose flap in the front with a little tie down, that's where I put my rain gear, the jacket, the pants I never really quite wore, and there's a bit of the ground sheet sticking out there. Polycro, love that stuff. It worked really well. And I put on top here, sort of loosely, but just with a tied to the handlebar as well, a little slap bag. That's where I kept the GoPro, and some other little necessities that you may need. Um, on this side, I also love the little bag you can put your electrolytes or scratch or whatever you take in on that side. Um, Also, a wired computer because it doesn't need to be recharged, everything, and it's kind of nice to just know the mileage. And sometimes you have to look up something in the data book or a turn or something like that. And then lastly, well, this was actually didn't work right from day one. I don't know, I charged it at home one last time and then it didn't work, but that would be a GoPro remote that would be handy if it actually works. So yeah, that's a little setup. Everything that doesn't fit in here, mainly water and food, goes into the little backpack that I carried on my back. And I try to minimize the weight on the backpack and squeeze as much as I can in here. Even in that bedroll in the front, sometimes I would put power bars or cliff bars on either side of it, and it's so much easier when the weight's on the bike itself. So cool. That's the bike setup as it is in the field on the last day.